focus of the next one. Political and regulatory risk. I think it affects Bitcoin in a little bit in the short term. Maybe it'll slow down adoption, but over the long term, I don't think it's an issue. Whereas for stocks, it's a huge issue.
Especially SpaceX.
Yes,
because
it's all speculative.
Well, and it's all, where do they get their revenue from?
Right. Oh, is it government contracts? I actually don't know.
It's all government contracts, isn't it? I guess AI is kind of lumped into that, so there would be some sort of actual, right? Like,
they have a consumer business with Starlink that's profitable,
right? Okay,
but there is a lot of government overlap with the ability to shoot the rockets up for the satellites. Like, they have to communicate with the government to be allowed to do that.
Yeah. So I mean, if you look at where the majority of Elon's funding began and where it still is, it was with President Trump. And so I think that if things ever flip back to, I don't want to say crazy town, but like a much different landscape, I guess, where the Democrats would get back into power. And, who knows what kind of contracts they might, everybody, it seems like, isn't as big a fan of Elon as they were back in 2020 when Biden was in and still giving them money. So that I'd say that's a huge risk in terms of who's in power and how much ability does SpaceX have to get these government contracts. You have Starlink, you have X.AI, but I feel like if you looked at the revenue split of those, I feel like the government contracts would be much larger in comparison to those other revenue streams. I could be wrong about that, but just the sheer magnitude of what those government grants are, I think it's big.
It's a huge risk.
And think about, like, not even for the revenue thing, but just for them to be able to operate a business, they need the permission of the government. Right. I mean, every company does that, but SpaceX has a way higher likelihood that if some government comes here and says, oh yeah, the space thing should not be in a private company, that should be actually kind of a government thing, like it should be kind of like a thing that is under federal law, and they just take it. I mean, we talk about nationalizing strategy. I think SpaceX has a way more higher likelihood of being stopped by the government and being deemed of like too dangerous to be driven by a private person rather than by the public. So just for them to operate that business, I don't think that America is likely that this will happen, but the likelihood is way higher than with any Bitcoin company. And obviously Bitcoin, they can't, like, nobody owns Bitcoin. I mean, there was a funny comment from Wyatt of the Bitcoin servers, which I absolutely loved. I was literally, I couldn't hold laughing, but so SpaceX has a very, very high risk. I think that the 0.5 here would even point as one of the highest risks for SpaceX specifically, because the government can just shut it down tomorrow.
Yeah, and I think this whole SpaceX thing, like, people will speculate on the space travel, like going to Mars, mining asteroids, data centers in space, all of that. But they basically IPO'd as an AI company. And there's within their disclosure, they had to say there's ongoing litigation and issues around some of the images that Grok made on X. If this doesn't get settled and there really is a political change, they could, I mean, lawfare is 100% a thing. Like, you can just punish people that are political enemies with the law. And there's already ongoing litigation against this company. I think this is that's sort of a risk, like, years down the road. So most people investing in SpaceX are not even thinking about that, because they're just like, whoa, it went up 20%. I got to get in. It's like serious lizard brain thinking investing in SpaceX right now. Like, that's the only reason to invest in that company, is to just speculate on the price. Like, if you're thinking long term with this thing, you should be waiting. You should be waiting, because right now there's probably like I wouldn't do this, but there's probably better opportunities shorting this thing. It seems crazy to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a comment there, which I want to get into. Someone said, oh gosh, my browser is not responding nicely, so it's like super low. I cannot pull it up right now, but someone said I wouldn't be so quick to think SpaceX is overvalued. They said the same thing about the Google IPO. And I was curious about that. And I was like, okay, let's see what the Google IPO had. The Google IPO was 1.6 billion. So 1.6 billion versus SpaceX is now almost 3 trillion. Plus, I think Google at that time, I'm not 100% sure actually about that, but I think they were actually profitable business at that time when they raised that money. Plus, yes, there is purchasing power of like now companies in general are bigger than in 2000 whatever when they went. When did they go out? 2004. They went public apparently in 2004. And so I was like asking the AI, like, okay, how many companies were in front of them? What was the biggest company at that time? And the biggest company at that time was almost 300x bigger than what Google was. Right now, SpaceX is only 2 times, like only half of that what the biggest company is. So they IPO'd literally this week, and I will show you guys this. It's crazy to even think about that. I'll quickly share my screen because I really want to hammer that thing down, that it's like not overvalued, but like there's not a lot of room to grow. It's literally number 7 on all the assets on planet Earth, and if you exclude gold and silver, it's number 5 on the IPO week. That is unprecedented. That hasn't happened before. If you compare it to Google had a 300x to the biggest company on planet Earth. SpaceX has not even a 2x to the biggest company on planet Earth. It's just like a massively different game that is being played here. So the runway of SpaceX and how much more runway they have is just like it's just a very different game. I think I hope I made that picture very clear.
Even with Google, it's a little different because I just Googled this. I just searched for that. I just Googled this number for Google. It was their profit at IPO was 106 million, and they had 962 million in revenue. The market cap was 23 billion. So they didn't. I mean, the profit is low. They had a pretty significant amount of revenue compared to even their IPO market cap. Whereas with SpaceX, it's completely off. They're negative. They're losing money. Like, how is this even comparable? Not even close. It's all. I think now it's more about companies just trying to build a book of clients, and then they can at some point pay up. Like, they can get those clients to pay them. Have you guys read the book Shitification?
No.
So what it is basically it's talking about how platforms first they take advantage of first they serve customers and the market or businesses. Eventually they start taking advantage of customers, then they start taking advantage of the businesses, and then it's all just them taking a cut out of everything. It's like what Meta did, right? It feels like that's exactly what's happening with companies like SpaceX, right? The market is first trying to find a set of customers that it can sell to. And then when it has enough customers and it knows that, oh, we can't fail at this one. That's exactly what's happening with Uber. Like Uber, it was all just funded through debt. They had to build a client list. And then once they have that client list, they can sell them all kinds of shit, right? They can just keep selling them garbage, right? And they know they can keep selling them. And I think that's exactly what people are doing with current companies. They're just trying to speculate on where it's going to go based on its current prospects, and they have no idea if those things are even real. Like there was one comment in the chat here that said it said something like is Google or sorry SpaceX is going to be part of how we get to space or something. Like that's gonna be it's gonna be run the highway of going to space. But keep in mind there's gonna be other companies that are gonna be doing exactly the same thing. Whereas with Bitcoin, there's no competition.
Yeah, somebody in the chat said that, well, it's the same guy. I think he said SpaceX is high risk, high reward. If you can't handle the heat, buy bonds. I mean, yeah, it's high risk. There's no high reward though, because you don't understand what are you like? What are you even investing in? What, like That, I think that's the biggest disconnect. And I really miss Preston Pish in Bitcoin. I wish that he would come back one day, because he was so adamant on this, in the sense of like, why are you investing your capital in a company? The point of it is so that one day you can get paid back your capital. But that's not how the world works now. It's all just speculating who can rug who first. And I think that that's just such a stupid game. I don't want any sort of part of it. And that's why I'm in Bitcoin, is so I don't have to deal with that bullshit, because it doesn't make any sense. How are you ever going to get paid back for SpaceX? What are they going to do? How are they going to make money so that they can pay their investors back? There's no long-term thing of that. It's like, well, over time, it's going to be worth more. Yeah, because they're going to print a shit more fiat units. That's why it's going to be worth more in 10 years from now. But we're comparing two different things. And I think that, you got a choice right now as a capital allocator in your family. Is you can buy a house, you can buy SpaceX shares, you can buy Bitcoin. To me, everything except Bitcoin is extremely overvalued because of the misunderstanding around Bitcoin. So if I wait 20 years, I might be able to buy a house for 1 million sats. Today, I can buy a house for $500,000, or I can buy 7 Bitcoin. So the whole disconnect right now is just simply misunderstanding by the market, people doing dumb things and just hoping that their thing goes up without actually understanding what's going on there. And I'm just tired of it. I just don't want any sort of part of it. So I will never be a SpaceX holder. Stacking sats is the easiest way, because everything's going to be priced in those units in the future, and it's all going to go down forever, including SpaceX shares.
I think that a lot of people, that we have some people in the chat that are investing in SpaceX. It's fine. It's your money. Burn it as rocket fuel if you want. The way I see it is, why did SpaceX IPO right now? Why is Anthropic and OpenAI planning their IPOs this year? It's because there is a bubble inflating. Doesn't mean bubbles have to pop. Sometimes they just deflate, right? And then reinflate, deflate, right? But there is a lot of capital interested in AI right now. It's what all the biggest stocks are associated with. So this is kind of like, I'm not saying the same thing's going to happen, but this is like IPOing an internet company in 1999. And you probably, like, Google did well IPOing in 2004 after all of that had already happened. You don't really want to, like, IPOing at the top is just to squeeze out a little bit of extra money, right? Like, it's where you can get the hottest valuation so that you can exit your insider positions. That's what this looks like to me. Like, again, SpaceX probably will be a great company in 10 plus years. But right now, there's a reason that they IPO'd right now, because there's a huge amount of money that will buy the shares from the insiders. That's what I see happening.
And I think it's very important, because some people here say, oh, SpaceX is high reward, and some people say, oh, it will crash, the rocket will crash. And I think the middle is kind of true. So I think SpaceX will probably be an amazing company in 10 years. I just think if you measure SpaceX in the next 10 years in fiat, it will outperform fiat. Like, it will have a great return. It will 100%. Probably even grow nicely. If you measure the same thing in Bitcoin, if you measure SpaceX over the next 10 years from this moment onward in Bitcoin, you're going to lose money.
Exactly. That's the whole point. That's the whole point.
Yeah. And so, like, that's why it's almost hard for me to discuss it, because, like, I'm a fan of Elon, I'm a fan of SpaceX. I would love to invest, but I look at the valuation, I look what they're doing, I look at the risk, and I'm like, I cannot give them a single cent. Like, I cannot invest money there, because I know it will be better treated in Bitcoin over the next 10 years. And so it's kind of, I know it's almost hard for me to say that, but it's like not giving a son that you love the money because you want him to grow up on his own and, like, to do his own shit. But it's almost like I want to give SpaceX money, and I would love for that to not be a $3 trillion company, but I don't know, a $50 billion company, and, like, where strategy is now sitting at. If SpaceX would be, I don't know, like $100 billion company even, or like a $200 billion company, I would be an investor. I would have bought that IPO, because I'm like, they have a shot at being a top 5 company. I mean, they are already a top 5 company right now. And so there's just a massive capital rotation into SpaceX. And if you also look at historical IPOs, most of them are not doing good in the first 1 year. Most IPOs are actually down in the first 8 to 11 months. So IPOs in general are usually not a good idea to buy. It's usually better to wait a little bit, see how they're doing in the market. So I usually stay away from IPOs just as a general rule. But that in specific, it's just so, as it has a very high valuation. And I could see a world where SpaceX falls 80%, 70%, 60%. And then I'm like, that looks juicy, and I might actually buy some. But at that valuation, I denominate my wealth in Bitcoin. It's like, I'm not going to touch it.
It's pretty simple. I mean, SpaceX right now, the market cap is valued at more than twice as much as the market cap of Bitcoin. Is that going to be something that continues to happen in the future?
So stupid.
The answer is no. Like, the answer is no. George started this whole thing off by basically talking about Bitcoin is the thing that ends up denominating everything else. And so it ends up not making sense. Like, those two things cannot be the same. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, this is only a thing that can happen right now in this moment in time. And we will trend in the direction of Bitcoin being the underlying denominator of everything else. So the value of it has to go up because of that, because everything else gets denominated in Bitcoin.